This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore.
You know, every time I talk about civil rights, about the plight of black Americans in this country, I get pushback. Every time I talk about reparations or some other thing that I truly believe is owed to black Americans, descendants of slaves, I get pushback. The social justice warrior, whatever nonsense. And people will say, well, the reason they're not owed, black descendants of enslaved human beings, the reason they're not owed anything is because they weren't slaves. They haven't had it bad. There's no oppression anymore. We're a whole different society. We're post-racial. We elected a black guy as president. It's just bananas to me. And then every once in a while, we learn of something that is still going on in the state of Alabama, Newbern, Alabama in this case, where they haven't held elections in their town for like 60 years. And the mayorship gets handed down from father to son over generations, as though this is not America, as though this is not America in 2024. That black people are still being boxed out of the electoral process, boxed out of representative government. This little town in Alabama is roughly 80% black, and the mayor always white. The mayor currently is this guy whose father before him was the mayor. Not elected, appointed. Madiba Denny wrote this article that I'm going to read. I would go follow her on Twitter. Fantastic. Tracking this lawsuit that's happening right now. And I want to bring this story to your attention. And I want you to share this video. I want you to bring light to this story because people need to know. I mean, it's incumbent upon us with the knowledge to illuminate stories like this so people do know that shit like this still goes on. This is the article from Madiba Denny. A small Alabama town stopped holding elections in 1965. Black residents are begging a federal court to change that. In a federal judiciary controlled by conservatives, the best liberals can hope for is a judge who thinks basic principles of democratic governance still matter. That is a hell of a headline. It is a hell of a thing. It must be, I can only imagine, to go through as a black American, go through your life in this country, God forbid doing it in Alabama or Mississippi or Louisiana, Georgia, Florida, Texas, name any other Republican-controlled state, doesn't have to be in the Southeast. But going through your life knowing that so many of your fellow Americans, your fellow citizens, do not value your participation in our democracy, don't value your life experience, your lived experience, it doesn't matter to them how you've lived, how you've been treated, and your opinion doesn't matter to try to shape governance, to try to shape how we live and how we govern ourselves. Here's the article. In 1965, Congress passed the Voting Rights Act, a landmark statute designed to dramatically increase black people's participation in electoral politics after centuries of slavery, segregation, and second-class citizenship. Newbern, Alabama, a small town in which 2/3 of 133 residents are black, has not held a municipal election for some 60 years. What a coincidence, Madiba Denny says. In place of a democratically elected government, the town, which is located about an hour south of Tuscaloosa, has been ruled by a small group of white people who handpick their mayoral and town council in a form of hand-me-down governance. In recent years, some of Newbern's residents have sought to change that. In a recent filing in federal court, the residents argue that the town's failure to hold elections violates residents' rights under the Voting Rights Act and the Constitution, and asked the court to order the town to hold an election by November 2024. Imagine being in America in 2024 and having a town that thinks it's some kind of a weird monarchy ruled by white people, this guy, again, and that we don't need democracy here. We don't need to let the people who actually live in this municipality make the decisions. Nah. It's Goober and Cletus's dad, and Goober's dad. He decides. It's the firstborn son. The case is striking for multiple reasons, including most obviously the absurdity of purported government's departure from fundamental democratic principles. It is also a stark reminder of the real-world impact of federal courts in a political and legal system dominated by reactionary conservatives. Liberals are asking judges for small victories, launching last-ditch efforts to access basic rights under the Constitution. Conservatives, in contrast, are aiming much higher. For them, courts are a testing ground for novel ways to curtail rights nationwide. In federal trial courts, conservatives are having their cake and eating it too, while liberals are begging for crumbs. The plaintiff in this case is Patrick Braxton, a black Newbern resident who in 2020 filed the actual long-ignored paperwork to run for mayor. As the only legally qualified candidate, he won by default and tried to appoint a town council accordingly. The existing town council responded by convening a secret meeting during which it decided to conduct the town's first ever special election. Telling no one about the new quote-unquote election, the previous mayor, get a load of this, it's not Cletus, it's not Goober, it's Haywood Woody Stokes III. Haywood Woody Stokes III and his council effectively reappointed themselves to their jobs. Stokes and his cronies have since repeatedly changed the locks at Town Hall as a part of the refusal to transfer power to the legitimate officials. They have also denied Braxton access to the town's bank account, forcing him to run food distribution drives and otherwise carry out his mayoral duties using his own funds. In the lawsuit, the plaintiffs are asking the court to install Braxton as the town's rightful mayor. Quote, allowing the defendants to continue their hand-me-down governance violates the basic tenets of democracy and state law, they write. In the meantime, they say, Stokes, remember, Haywood Woody Stokes III. Stokes is ignoring basic requests from his black constituents. Although their homes occasionally flood with raw sewage, he's refused to support the installation of a proper sewage system. The simple request in this case, can we have a local election, please, is a far cry from the triumphant ask being asked by conservative legal movement lawyers in federal courtrooms all across the country. You see, as much talk as there is about lawfare and the two-tier justice system, they're right. It's just not going the way they say it goes. It's not that Donald Trump is the victim and white rich men are the victim. It's black people in towns like Newbern, Alabama. It's clear, self-evident, some would say, that this is still going on. So tell me again, skeptics of reparations, tell me again, people who act like we live in a post-racial society, tell me again that we do. Tell me again, convince me of your argument. I'm dying to hear it. When it's 2024 and there are still towns in the deep South that don't even hold elections and haven't since over a decade before I was born. No, we live in a representative democracy, a constitutional republic by which our representatives are elected, but not in Newbern, Alabama, with Cletus the Goober Woody Harrier. Come on. Follow Madiba Denny on Twitter. I will link below to this lawsuit, the website to this lawsuit, or the actual filing. If you want to read it, I would encourage you to do so. It'll all be linked below. What do you think? I'd love to know. You can call, leave me a brief voicemail, 714-576-4054. Of course, you can email me the old-fashioned way. You know, like elections used to be old-fashioned. Daily@dollemore.com. I'd love to hear from you. If you want to help me make these videos, click the join button below, and for $2 a month, you can take part in reaching the audience that I reach. You can become a channel member on YouTube for $2 a month. You can go to patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast, $2 a month. Follow me on social media as well. I'm at Dollemore. I'd love to see you there. Tag me in this video if you share it on Twitter or wherever. I'd love to see it. And I will see you next time. Until then, be genuine. Take care of one another.